Well, hello, it's Jacqueline here, and I'm here with the second of our 10-minute-ish trainings. And I'm going to answer a question by Kathy Evans Howard that was put into the group earlier, which is when you are speaking to an audience and you need to edit as you go, do you find that this process, when practiced and efficient, seems more authentic than a well-prepared speech version, or do you prefer not to and go with the latter? Now, the truth is that the answer to that question is it's not an either or, it's an and. Let me explain. When we work with people to build their speech, build their keynote, build their presentation, build their pitch, whatever it might be, we actually fully script the first run, right? And I actually fully script the first run of a 3-day workshop. I fully script the first run. Now, there's a reason for that. There is actually a science. So whenever you step to the front of a room, when you're going to deliver a speech, a presentation, a keynote, a pitch, whatever it might be, a TED talk, I know that's on a lot of people's radars. Whenever you step to the front of the room, you're actually stepping into a position of influence. You're actually stepping into a place where you want to be able to influence from. You want to be able to shift people from where they are now to where you want them to be and actually to where they want to be. Right? That's the most important bit. You're taking people to a place that they discover they actually really always wanted to be. And so when we're building a speech or a presentation, there's actually a science to it, right? Influence is a science, right? Anyone can learn the principles and practices of influence. Influence is absolutely 100% a science. So we deliberately build speeches out. We have 7 different frameworks and structures that we use with our clients, depending on who they are, what they're looking for, and what they need to achieve. And we actually build it out deliberately. We follow a very specific framework and structure to do that. And the reason being is most of you aren't born with the ultimate in influence and persuasion skills. Now, within those, there are some significant chunks. So there's where we put story, there's where we put data, there's where we put teaching, there's where we put instruction. It's where we do the mic drops. It's how do we do the call to actions if there is one. So all of those things bundle up in a very specific way, and we create layers. Right. So to do this, to learn this, for most of us is a whole new skill. So we have to do it deliberately to start with, or else we never actually get better. The best quote I ever heard was practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. So even though you may be practicing what you think is amazing, if it's actually not cutting through, all you're doing is practicing something that becomes permanently etched into the neurons of your brain, into your neural pathways. And that's not going to help anyone, particularly you. So we deliberately build, we deliberately script, we deliberately teach you how to put what things where and shape them so that you are taking your audience on a journey deliberately. And we do that perfectly. Now, one of the reasons why we do it, and it's not about rehearsing. We have a process as well that's called script perfect, not word perfect. It's not about being polished and perfect, but it is about getting you to conversational ease so that when you deliver, even from a stage of 1,000 people, people feel like you're sitting down in front of them having a conversation just with them. So it's not about getting it well rehearsed, it's getting it to conversational ease so that that's how people feel that they are engaging with you, no matter how big the room. Right. Now, the second part of Kathy's question was, should we edit on the go, create on the go, deliver it as we go? So one of the reasons why we are very specific about how we build the first run speeches and the way that we layer it is so that if you need to edit on the go, and that can happen a few different reasons. So if you need to edit on the go, you can do it in a way that you don't lose power and you don't lose engagement and you don't bring any inadvertent moments of disconnection in. What I mean by that is quite often when we have to shorten what we're presenting, or when we realize that we need to shift gears a little to get the audience engaged, we delete things on the go or we add things on the go that add to points of disconnect. So we delete things on the go that are actually some of the most powerful things that we've got because we're not thinking clear, because we're actually in a little bit of adrenal rush because we've got to get this thing right. Okay. Or we add things that actually aren't relevant and are not going to help us move people to where we want them to go. So we may also be asked. So, for example, I have a keynote that I launched last year called The Truth About Impact. It's 45 minutes. Most people in my inner circle in the city I live in Brisbane, Australia, have seen it. And last week, I spoke for free at a local networking event because that's part of my community involvement. I spoke for free, and it had to be a 20-minute version. And one of the women who's seen both was in that room, and she was like, at the end of it, she was like, I know that that's only half of what you said last time, but I can't figure out what you cut out. I don't feel like you missed anything. And the reason she felt like that was even though I was asked to reduce the time, because of the way that we deliberately structure these things, I could pull bits out and bring back the time without losing the impact and the power. Okay. And this is why we actually have to deliberately create speeches to start with so that we can deliver it in whatever version we need to. Now, even when you are given a place on a conference program or an event program and you're given 45 minutes, if that program is running behind and you're not a big name, high profile speaker, you are the one they're going to ask to cut their time. They're not going to ask the big guys, right? They're not going to interrupt something they might need to be doing with fundraising or a dignitary addressing the crowd or a sponsor giving their time. They're going to ask you to cut it. And what happens with most people is they just randomly cut shit to try and get it down to this right size. But with a deliberate build, you know exactly what to get rid of, and you can do it pretty fast. You can do it with a few minutes notice because of the way that we teach you to frame it. So Kathy, the short answer is both. Right? It's not an either or, it's an and. So deliberately create it, get it to conversational ease, and do it in a way, learn how to do it in a way such that when it needs to be reduced or when you feel like you need to shift it for the crowd, you can do that without losing that position of power and influence that you hold, and you can still deliver the same impact, the same life-changing perspective change, that you want to give the people sitting in front of you. So I hope that helps. Any questions that you've got from this, because I know sometimes these things bubble up more questions than they answer, pop them below and we'll make sure we pop back in these coming weeks to answer them.